Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. So we did the 5-day forecast earlier on. You can find the video to that on the homepage. Just scroll down the page a bit and it's underneath the link ads. There's also the written version which you can get to via a button at the top of the page. It's going to be a very quiet 5 days coming up with high pressure dominating. Going to be cold though, especially in the north with a lot of frost and fog up there. Down in the south we're starting off quite mild and cloudy, but it will turn colder even in the south over the weekend and start next week. If you want to know more about 5-day forecasts, do check that out if you'd like to do that. This video is going to pick up from that point really and have a look at the weather next week, 10 days. I had a very cold update from the GFS, a 6 o'clock run of the GFS came through a few hours ago and was a really cold run this morning. Now, as I said yesterday, and I think I spoke about it the day before as well, Monday and Tuesday, we are on a bit of a knife edge for the first week of December between possibly having Atlantic-driven and fairly mild weather and maybe having quite a cold start to December with northerly winds. We're still on that sort of borderline between perhaps being cold or fairly mildish and unsettled for the first week of December. But the GFS might be starting to edge more towards the colder side of things, actually, for the first week of December. So I'll fill you in on what's been going on in a moment. Before I get on with that, just say about the ads. There's links to articles on all the pages. Just spoke about those. If you have a browse visits and click through the links, helping us pay for our website, thanks very much for doing that. There's also video ads on most pages. They open that content. When you watch them, they should close back up again. It does help to pay for gas service. And just to say about the shop, it's still there, it's still open. We started on the 1st of November, been a huge success again this year. So if you've got any Christmas shopping to do at Amazon between now and Christmas, all you have to do is click the green button that says Christmas Shop. That takes you to our Christmas shop page. You'll know you're on the right page because you'll be greeted by some snowflakes. And to just click through the Amazon banners, that's the key to the whole thing, really. Click through the Amazon banners, you go straight to Amazon where you do Christmas shopping as normal. Don't need to do anything else differently whatsoever. Because you've gone from Gazobis to Amazon, we get a revenue fee on the things that you are buying. And a big thank you to everybody for doing that. As I said, it's been a huge success again this year. So big thanks to everyone. Still loads of time, though, to get Christmas shopping in if you haven't yet done so. We're going to start off with the stratospheric temperatures over the North Pole for the start of December. So this is in the extended range still of the GFS. This is the latest run, the 6 o'clock run of the GFS. This website, meteoseal.fi, you can find a link to that website on the links page. So we look at the temperature in the stratosphere over North Pole, stratosphere being the top layer of the atmosphere over North Pole. Because it can be a guide to what's going to be happening down in the troposphere. That's lower down, that's where weather is happening, if you like. So when the stratosphere is cold, when that top layer of the atmosphere is cold over North Pole, it tends to coincide with a stronger polar vortex through the Arctic down into Greenland. And for us, that tends to mean we have milder westerly Atlantic-driven weather. So a cold stratosphere equals milder Atlantic-driven conditions generally. Whereas if you've got a warm stratospheric temperature over the North Pole, particularly in winter, it tends to coincide with a weakened and disrupted polar vortex, and also sometimes with northern blocking as well. And northern blocking is really the route to cold conditions. So a warm stratosphere equals an increased chance, not a guarantee, increased chance of colder weather for the UK and for Europe as well. It's not quite that simple because where exactly the blocking is sitting is the key factor really. But it's one of the things that we look for to tell us whether we've got an increased chance of colder and more block conditions a few weeks down the line from when you get a warming event. So this is how the GFS is forecasting things for the 1st of December, this latest run of the GFS model. You can see that cold stratospheric temperature over North Pole. It is cold up there because it's in the cooling time of year, of course. We're almost at the coldest point of the year in terms of those stratospheric temperatures. That'll be around the end of December. on average. So it is cold up there, but it's not as cold as it has been over the past few years. And this warming through Siberia, these yellow colours, quite interesting. They're trying to push warmer air into the stratosphere over the North Pole from Russia and from Siberia too. So let's run through and see how the GFS is forecasting things to develop through the first week of December. Excuse me. You can see those yellow colours increasingly starting to penetrate in towards the North Pole. That is a southern stratospheric one, but it is quite a substantial warming, and it does increase actually by the time you get through to the 8th of December. We really are at quite a warm level there across parts of Russia and Siberia. And that is putting more and more strain onto the polar vortex, onto those cold stratospheric temperatures that are across the North Pole as this warming gradually tries to move its way in. So although we still don't see a sudden stratospheric warming, that's where the temperature shoots up over around a couple of days and totally obliterates those cold temperatures over the North Pole, and also tends to obliterate the polar vortex. Not got that, but we are continuing to see these warm temperatures putting pressure and putting more and more pressure onto the cold temperatures over the stratosphere and onto the polar vortex. So I think we can expect the polar vortex through early December to be staying weaker than normal and to be staying disrupted at times as well. This is a recap of how things were looking this time last year. This is what the GFS was forecasting on this day last year for the 1st of December. Notice nowhere near the extent of yellow colours there on the 1st of December across Russia and Siberia. Much more extensive cold stratospheric profile, really stretching from America over towards Russia and also from the Pacific down to the Atlantic. A very large area of colder than average stratospheric temperature, or cold stratospheric temperatures over North Pole. And the forecast didn't get much better through the first week of December either. If anything, it just got colder over North Pole, and no real warming at all taking place around the edges around Russia and Siberia. Certainly no pressure being put onto those cold stratospheric temperatures. So as a result, we had a very strong westerly flow this time last year. It's exceptionally mild, lots of rain, lots of wet weather. Wasn't totally down to what was going on with the stratospheric temperatures. There are other reasons for what happened last winter, particularly in terms of that super El Nino event that took place. But certainly one of the things that was driving the extreme mild and wet weather pattern that we had this time last year was these cold stratospheric temperatures. Very different story this year compared to last year. Nowhere near as cold over top of the pole, and these much warmer temperatures putting pressure all the time onto the cold stratosphere and onto the polar vortex as well. So as we go into December, I would expect that we'll see continued weakness of the polar vortex, possibly disruption at times as well. The Arctic Oscillation Observed and Forecast chart appears to be telling us that we've gone into a long-term switch to a negative Arctic oscillation. So the black line here is where the Arctic oscillation has been. We go back to the summer with this. The red line's at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic oscillation to go. Now this essentially is an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere in the North Pole. So when the Arctic oscillation is positive, it tells you that essentially you've got that strong polar vortex, you've got low pressure over the North Pole, probably bring westerlies through the mid-latitudes. When the Arctic oscillation is negative, it tells you that the polar vortex is weakened, the westerlies aren't as strong as a result, and you might also have blocking areas of high pressure over the pole as well. So you see we had a positive Arctic oscillation back in the summer and in September. From around the 1st of October, it almost changed with the change of the month from September to October. We sent the Arctic oscillation negative, and except for this little peak just here that occurred about a week ago, we've generally been trending negative with the Arctic oscillation since the start of October. So that tells us that, again, the polar vortex has been weakened, it's been disrupted, and we have had blocking high pressures as well, particularly so in November, the early part of November, I should say. Well, what the GFS wants to do as we look ahead to December, this is 1st of December just here, is keep the Arctic oscillation negative. Have got quite a bit of scatter here as we go into the start of November, so that's just what I was talking about at the beginning of the video, the knife edge that we're on for the first week of December, between possibly being cold or being a bit milder. Some of these members of the GFS ensembles do go quite positive with the Arctic oscillation, but most of them are keeping things negative, and actually some of them are dropping into very negative territory indeed, and no doubt those are the ensemble members that are producing quite a lot of cold weather through the first week of December. But even if we do increase westerlies a little bit through the first week of December, maybe set things a little bit milder, I'm not sure it'll be all that long lasting, to be honest. I think the long-term trend with this is to be negative with the Arctic oscillation. These indexes, North Atlantic oscillation is very similar. They do tend to move in sort of several monthly cycles. So when you go negative or positive, it'll tend to last for quite a few months, maybe 3 or 4 months. So we went negative at the start of October. We might still have a couple of months of fairly negative Arctic oscillation indexes to come. We'll have to wait and see on that one. So these are the height anomalies for next week to 10 days. We've got the E70UF here on the top, the GFS, have a look at that in a moment. It's on the bottom, 500 millibards, 80,000 feet is an area in the atmosphere, high pressure, low pressure, being moved around by a jet stream running above. Black star plates, low pressure, and red high pressure. E70UF is placing a very deep and cold trough in across Scandinavia and down into eastern parts of Europe, just into the opening days of December. It has a ridge close to the UK, above average heights out to the west and the northwest. So we are just on the periphery, just on the edges of quite a cold plunge there from the north with the E70UF. But it's just a little bit to the east of us. If we was to move this ridge of above average heights further west, we would probably open the door to those northerly winds, and that's in fact what the GFS is doing. So this is the GFS 500 millibar height anomaly for the next week to 10 days, and the area of red is further to the west of us. It's out in the middle of the Atlantic, going up towards Greenland. As a result, the trough that the E70UF is placed across Scandinavia and Eastern Europe is being placed across Scandinavia and northwestern parts of Europe. So that places us in cold air. We've got cold air feeding into that trough, and as I say, the GFS is significantly colder with its 6 o'clock run compared to the E70UF. We're going to have a look at that in a moment. GFS temperature precipitation ensembles the next 2 weeks shows the uncertainty for the start of December. So the red line here is the 30-year temperature average. Dates on the bottom of the chart. That's 1st of December just there. We're above average with the temperatures right now, but it's under a ridge of high pressure. So where we've got some instability with the air, which is in the south, we've got a bit of an easterly wind, quite a bit of cloud. It's fairly mildish down there. But where the air is very stable, very static, nothing to stir the atmosphere up, there it's much colder on the surface. It might be fairly warm aloft in the atmosphere, but down on the surface, across Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, it's going to be very cold over the next few days, particularly so at night. Now, we're going to next week, and that's when we've got the uncertainty. Huge amount of scatter still for that first week of December. I think the GFS ensembles are trending colder, however. You'll notice the white line, which is the ensemble mean, so that's taking all 20 members of the ensemble and producing a mean temperature. That is now going colder than average, which is the first time that's happened, going underneath the red line, which is the 30-year temperature average. So very gradually, I think the GFS ensembles are beginning to trend more towards the colder side of things. Precipitation shows loads of dry weather through the rest of November, but into December, lots and lots of precipitation spikes. I say precipitation rather than rain because these milder ensemble members would be producing rain, but the colder ensemble members could be producing sleet or snow. There is a lot of uncertainty around that first week of December. So let's just have a look at the GFS and UCM before I go. This is for Monday, right at the end of 5-day forecast period. High pressure is dominating on Monday, so still mostly dry and quite cold. Into Tuesday and Wednesday, that high pressure is relenting, so to allow low pressure to move in from the northwest. That's probably bringing cloud and outbreaks of rain. And then second half of next week, this is Thursday the 1st of December, we find the trough beginning to plunge southwards. If you follow the isobars back, winds are starting to go into the north, so it's becoming colder. Cold air surging south, and that takes us into Friday when we are in cold northerly winds, probably producing snow showers in the north and the west of the country. And then it just stays cold up to day 10, even beyond day 10. This takes us up to the first weekend of December. This is Saturday the 3rd. To Sunday the 4th of December, where we're still looking cold. We've got this blocking feature in the Atlantic and trying to move up towards Greenland. Then we've got this trough extending through the northwest of Europe, and that's turning those winds into the north. And these troughs of low pressure, we've got one there, we've got one here, could be providing the precipitation, and with cold northerly winds, that could be wintry in places, certainly for the north. There would be snow with that, but maybe even down in the south as well. ECWF is not as bullish with this northerly wind for the start of December. So this is, again, Monday. We've got high pressure dominating across the country. That stays with us into Tuesday. Then Wednesday and Thursday, we begin to set up that trough over Scandinavia and down in towards eastern parts of Europe. We've got the ridge out to the west, the northwest. It's semi-majestically on a northwest-southeast trajectory, so it's probably quite cool, but close to this ridge of high pressure, we're not all that cold. The cold air really is going through into Scandinavia and then northeastern parts of Europe. Beyond that, into Friday and Saturday, 2nd and 3rd of December, it stays very cold through Scandinavia and eastern parts of Europe. That's where the cold air is. This ridge is still just about hanging on to the south. It's a messy picture there by day 10, Saturday 3rd of December. But the main thing is that it is significantly milder. The air's coming up from the south or the southwest, and the cold air is down through Scandinavia and eastern parts of Europe. With to roll on a few more days from that, I suspect it might progress into a colder direction. But we've still got lots of uncertainty. You've gathered that from both these models for early December. We're certainly going to have high pressure dominating through the rest of this week into weekend and start of next week. So around the middle and latter part of next week, that it gets very uncertain. Will we get this push of cold air from the north, or will we have a milder interlude and probably some outbreaks of rain from the west? We'll wait and see, and I'll update you tomorrow. But the GFS is probably edging more towards the colder side of things. We'll see what the models have to say tomorrow. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.